I hope you or somebody does around you can look on with. Let me invite you to open with me to Matthew chapter 26. Matthew chapter 26. I had planned a particular direction to go in this morning, though during my quiet time as I was praying for you, the Lord redirected to this text. Love is a strange thing, and it makes you do strange things. So please forgive me if a couple of you have heard me share this story before, but my wife's the only girl I ever dated, which sounds noble until you realize I was just socially awkward. Totally afraid to talk to girls. I'm not just trying to be self-effacing. I was very socially awkward. So afraid to talk to girls, so God in His mercy provided a girl who started talking to me. And when that happened, I decided I needed to hold on to her. So we celebrated our wedding anniversary one year, and she gave me a gift. And what she had done is she had taken letters that I'd written her over the course of our relationship, and she'd put them all into this scrapbook. And I want to risk any semblance of reputation I might have by sharing just a small portion of one of those letters, very small portion. So apparently when I wrote this letter, she's a year older than me. She had just moved off to college. I was still in high school, and we were technically just friends at that point, but, and you know what that means, like nothing. I wanted to be more than friends, and the only girl that talked to me was gone, so anyway, so apparently when I wrote this letter to her, we had just talked on the phone, and this is what it said. These are exact words. Dear Heather, dude, I am so glad you called tonight. Oh, what kind of opening is that? Like, guys, if you've ever written a letter like this, like, you pour over every word. Like, I have no clue what compelled me to think that the first word out of the chute should be dude. So I continued. I have wanted to call you Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and today, but I just figured you were too busy. You're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say that you've been really busy. Like, apparently I was not. So I said, when I heard your voice, it was so awesome. It was so awesome that I can't explain how I felt. You sounded so awesome. Is this not the most lame thing you've ever heard? Awesome, twice. So it got worse. It got 3 pages of worse. I mean, just agonizing to read 3 pages of this. So that's why I'm just reading a small portion. So I'll go ahead and jump to the end, all right? So here was my rousing conclusion. Here's how I bring it to a head. Here it was. Dude, I'm not just wasting ink when I say this. Wasting ink? Like, can you tell I never had a girlfriend? Like, is it obvious? Wasting ink. My life isn't the same without you around. I miss having you to talk with and spend time with. I miss you something fierce. Fierce? Fierce? Really? Really? Praying for you, dude. So for those counting, that's 3 dude mentions in a total of 8 lines. Praying for you, dude, in Christ. Don't blame this on him. Like, it's not his fault. Like, you wrote this. This is not in Christ. This is in you. in Christ, David. That was the letter I wrote to my future wife. Don't clap. No, please. Like, why are you clapping? You're clapping because you feel sorry for me. Like, oh, help the brother out. Like, man. Maybe you're clapping because you feel sorry for my wife. Like, oh, let's give her applause. I mean, yeah, like she married this guy. Or maybe you're just clapping in worship. Like it just caused your heart. God, only you could cause a man like that to be married. Like I just am overflowing with adoration of you. So these words that admittedly seem ridiculous to you, they reflect a relationship with my wife. So a relationship marked by, for years, adoration, affection, longing, ultimately love. And the reason I share all of that is because I just want to ask one simple question of every student, faculty for that matter, in this room this morning. Like, do those words describe your relationship to Jesus? My adoration, affection, longing, ultimately love. Because I'm just convinced that it's really, really easy to coast through life and even a supposed Christian life and miss out on that kind of love relationship with Jesus. I guess the question I really want to ask every single student, faculty member across this room, like not just the person beside you, in front of you, behind you, if I got a few minutes, there's one question I want to ask, like, does your heart, right where you're sitting, does your heart belong to Jesus? And I want to challenge you in just a couple minutes I got with you this morning. I want to challenge you in two ways. I want to challenge you, one, to pour out your life in selfless love for him. And then flowing from that, I want to challenge you to spend your life spreading his love to others. Matthew chapter 26, verse 1, I think will help us do that. The Bible says when Jesus had finished all these sayings, he said to his disciples, you know that after 2 days the Passover is coming and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified. Then the chief priests and the elders of the people gathered in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and plotted together in order to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. But they said, not during the feast, lest there be any uproar among the people. Now when Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster flask of very expensive ointment, and she poured it on his head as he reclined at the table. When the disciples saw it, they were indignant, saying, why this waste? This could have been sold for a large sum and given to the poor. But Jesus, aware of this, said to them, why do you trouble the woman? For she has done a beautiful thing to me. For you will always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. And pouring this ointment on my body, she has done it to prepare me for burial. Truly I say to you, wherever this gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. So one, I want to challenge you, based on this unnamed woman in Matthew 26, to pour out your love, your life in selfless love for Christ. So imagine this scene. Just picture it like you're in the room. Like you got religious leaders who are conspiring to catch and kill Jesus. One disciple, Judas, is preparing to peddle Jesus for a paltry sum. The other disciples have no clue what's about to happen, even though Jesus has told them he's about to die. So they gather together at Simon's house, and all of a sudden our attention is curiously drawn to this woman. Matthew leaves her unnamed, almost uniquely enabling you and me to imagine ourselves in her shoes. Unlike the disciples, she realizes Jesus is about to die. She's holding an alabaster flask of very expensive perfume in her hands, worth about a year's wages. Can you imagine, like, a $50,000, $100,000 flask of perfume? There's a reason Matthew says very expensive. So she takes it, and trembling, she treads slowly toward Jesus. She stops by his side. He looks up at her. And in a moment that was sure to shock the entire room, she removes the lid from the flask and starts pouring the perfume on his head. You can smell the fragrance as it starts filling the air. Just feel the awkward tension that accompanies it. These drops of expensive oil are just cascading down Jesus' face. The disciples can't stay quiet. They say, why this waste? And they're shaming this woman who's now standing in silence with nothing but an empty flask in her fingertips. This could have been sold for a lot of money. That could have gone to help the poor and all kinds. Just think of all the hungry who could have food, the sick who could receive care, all the enslaved and oppressed who could be blessed with $50,000, $100,000. Instead, she's wasted it, pouring it on his head. And Jesus says, this is no waste. He says, this is a beauty. Where the disciples ascribe shame, Jesus ascribes honor. He says, this woman has done a beautiful thing to me. So what does that mean? Doesn't Jesus care about justice? Doesn't Jesus care about the poor, the hungry, the sick, the enslaved, the oppressed? Absolutely he does. We see that all throughout Jesus' life and ministry, including right before this and end of Matthew chapter 25. But what's clear in Matthew chapter 26 is that true love for others, follow this, springs from selfless love for God. And I think that's a point we're all prone to miss, just like the disciples in this passage. You think about it. Let's just be honest. We think about injustice in the world today. Think about social injustice. All kinds of issues might come to our mind. Take one, take sex trafficking. Right? Entire movements have arisen among college students to combat the sale of women and children for sex around the world. And it is right to fight injustice like that. It is altogether right to stand for the enslaved. At the same time, we go to conferences, we listen to speakers, we watch documentaries, we raise money on college campuses to stop sex trafficking. At the same time we're doing that, almost 90% of college males and over 30% of college females are viewing pornography in dorms and apartments on computers, tablets, phones. And that's not just secular campuses. It's a recent study conducted at evangelical Christian colleges. Nearly 80% of male undergraduate students have viewed pornography in the last year. 60% of them view it every week. We do realize the link between pornography and sex trafficking, right? Like, not only do those who indulge in pornography disregard Christ by degrading women and children and men made in his image. In the process, they also create a demand for more prostitutes, which then promotes sex trafficking around the world. So do we see the hypocrisy in our own hearts? There lies within us this capacity to convince ourselves that we actually are fighting injustice, when the reality is we're fueling it. You say, well, what does that have to do with Matthew 26? That has everything to do here. Whether it's poverty, whether it's sex trafficking, any other number of issues, there is something within us that is prone to passionately defend a cause while we personally disregard Christ. So see it in these disciples, see it in yourself and myself, the subtle yet sinful propensity in all of us to advocate for justice while ignoring Jesus. That's dangerous. Not this woman, though. She knows that what is most important in life is a heart that's given over to Christ. She realizes the significance of what is about to happen. Like he's about to die. She's in this way, in a sense, preparing him for burial. She realizes the significance of what Jesus is about to do. May we realize in this room the significance not of what he's about to do, what he has done. We sang about it. Like when we're talking about Jesus, we're talking about God in the flesh, who came to live the life we could not live, a life of perfect obedience to God. No sin in him, totally unlike us. And yet, though he had no sin for which to pay, had no sin for which to die, he chose to die in our place. Jesus lived the life we couldn't live, and then he died the death we deserved to die. Jesus went to the cross to pay the price for all of our sin. And then the good news keeps getting better. He didn't stay dead. He rose from the dead. Rose from the dead. We're talking resurrection. We're not talking resuscitation. We're not talking reincarnation. We're not talking went to heaven, came back, wrote a best-selling book about it. We're talking dead for 3 days, then walking around alive. We're talking you go to a funeral tomorrow, you see a man's body put in the grave, and you walk away, dirt poured over that grave, you walk away, and this next weekend, that guy comes up to you on the street and says hello. That's unusual. It's the greatest news in all the world. Like death has been defeated. Jesus has conquered sin and death and the grave. And he's made eternal life possible for all who turn from their sin to trust in him. This is the greatest news in all the world. Jesus is worthy. Oh, see it. He's worthy of all your affection, adoration. So much more worthy of your affections than so many things this world puts in front of you. Put your affections here. Anyone, anything in this world, nothing in this world, no one in this world compares to Jesus. He's worthy of selfless, sacrificial, satisfying devotion. This woman pouring out expensive perfume. She would have nothing to do with the half-hearted, lukewarm, comfortable, casual commitments to Christ that are so common in our culture today. Sacrificial devotion, selfless devotion. It's like she doesn't care what this might mean for her, what others may say about her, how others may respond to her. No, she's ready for the crowds to shame her. Watch this unnamed, humble woman walk through the midst of that crowd to Jesus, risking who she is, all she owns, to pour out her offering in sacrificial, selfless, satisfying devotion. Think about it. Why? Why would this woman do this? Why would she risk her reputation? What was likely had to be her most prized possession. Why would she do it? So the answer is simple yet profound. Why does she do this? Because she believes Jesus is worth it. Why does she take the risk? Because she knows Jesus is reward. She's like another unnamed man in Matthew. Earlier in Matthew, remember Matthew chapter 13, verse 44? It's just a simple picture in one verse. Jesus tells us about a man who is walking through a field one day, and this man stumbles upon some treasure in that field, and he realizes that treasure is worth more than everything else he has put together. Nobody else knows this treasure's there, though, so he kind of covers it over, and he goes back, and the text says he sells everything he has. You can imagine people coming up to him saying, "What are you doing? Why are you selling everything you have?" And the guy says, "I'm going to buy that field over there." And they say, "Well, you're crazy. Why are you going to sell everything you have to buy that field?" And he smiles, and he says, "I got a hunch." He smiles. The text says with gladness he sells everything he has. He smiles. Why? Because inside he knows that he has found something that's worth losing everything for. Oh, to every student on this campus, hear this. Jesus is someone worth losing everything for. He's so much better than the best things this world could ever offer you. He's worthy. That's the whole point. He's worthy. He's someone worth losing everything for. Hear this unnamed man in Matthew 13, unnamed woman in Matthew chapter 26, just crying out over all the marketers and messengers who are spending billions of dollars every year to sell you the lie that the purpose of your life is to get that possession or this position or experience these pleasures, this acclaim, that achievement. Hear this unnamed man and woman shouting to you, don't buy it. Jesus alone is worthy of your life. He alone is worthy. He alone is worthy of your unashamed, unrestrained, undivided, unadulterated devotion. He's worthy of so much more than casual acceptance or nominal adherence. This is no game. Jesus is worthy of total adoration and supreme affection. He's worthy of all your heart. So that's part of what I'm asking. Like, does he have it? Does he have your heart? Like right where you're sitting, does your heart belong to Jesus? I'm not asking if you're passionate about this or that cause. I'm asking an eternally more important question. Are you passionate about Christ? I'll give you an example from church history. John Wesley, one of the most influential teachers, preachers, leaders in Christian history, graduated with honors from Oxford University. Christian school, ordained as a minister in the Church of England, theology grounded in God's word, faith active in the world. He distributed food and clothing to families and orphans in slums, regularly visited inmates in prisons, workhouses in London, studied the Bible daily, diligently, attended multiple worship services every Sunday, in addition to all sorts of other services all week long. He prayed, fasted regularly, gave generously, sacrificially to the poor, even moved as a missionary to what was then the British colony of Georgia to work among American Indians there. Yet after all of that, he came back to England after serving as a missionary, and he wrote in his journal, this is what he wrote: I, who went to America to convert others, was never myself converted to God. Did you follow that? Like, he did all those things. He went to college, he studied the Bible, he worshiped, fasted, prayed, preached, gave, moved overseas as a missionary, but he didn't know Christ. And so the last thing I want to do, particularly from my role in international mission, but the last thing I want to do is call students to a heart for missions when what's far more important is a heart for Jesus. And it's a heart for missions. It flows from a heart for Jesus. Because when your heart is in love with Christ and not the things of this world, not the pursuits of this world, when your heart's in love with Christ, then it just makes sense to say, here's my life. Use me however you want to make your love known in the world around me. Now, missions is the overflow. So that's why. So 2 challenges there. Like, 1, like, pour out your life in selfless love for Christ, and then flowing from that, spend your life spreading the love of Christ. That's the commentary at the end of this story in Matthew chapter 26. Truly, I tell you, wherever this gospel is preached throughout the whole world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. Her love for Christ led to proclamation of the love of Christ throughout the whole world. That's where, when I'm praying for you this morning, I obviously don't know most of you in this room, but I believe that the opportunities before you to spread the love of Christ throughout the world are limitless. I look on this campus with all kinds of students getting all kinds of different degrees, that if you see your life through this lens, and this is where, just for the last couple minutes, I just want to plead with you. When you look at your future, to ask the question, well, 1, in love for Christ, so you're devoted to Him, and then as you're loving Him, just to say to Him, Lord, here's my life, here's my degree, here's my future. Use me for the spread of your love throughout the world, however you want. I'm pleading for you not to give in to the temptation to spend your life just coasting out a comfortable Christian spin on the American dream after you leave this campus. Just take it easy. till you get to heaven one day. That's not what you've been created for. There's a world that desperately needs to know the love of Christ. There's a couple billion people in the world right now who've never even heard his name. They've never even heard his name, much less how much he loves them. And you, by the degree you're getting on this campus, have opportunities to spread his love in ways far beyond what you can even begin to imagine. Like I have students come to me sometimes and say, I see the need in the world, so I just think I'm gonna quit school and just go. Spread the love of Christ. Leave school behind. Like, before you do that, think about what your degree will open up for you to do around the world. Like I think about one girl. She's a nursing student. She does nursing. I was driving by the nursing school over here. And she did nursing. She got a degree in nursing, but what happened is when she finished her degree, she started looking intentionally among the nations for a job where people don't know the name, the love of Jesus. So she gets a job in nursing in a hospital in the heart of the Middle East. I won't mention the specific country, but the heart of this, the Muslim Middle East. She gets a job doing nursing. She rises up in the ranks of nursing in that hospital. Now she's head over nursing in that hospital. She has a Bible study every week in her office with Muslims, and nobody stops her. You know why? Because she's so good at nursing. And this has opened a door for the spread of God's love in ways, and there's opportunities like that all around the world. I think those of you who study in business, like I have a buddy I was just talking to a couple weeks ago. He lives in North Africa, and he started a whole rug business there where he'll go into a village. He'll pay the equivalent of about $50 to buy a rug. Pay the equivalent of about $50 to get that rug repaired and cleaned up some, and then, so he's got about $100 in that rug. Then he'll put it on an online site like Etsy, and he'll sell it to a New York loft owner for $1,600. And I just think, that's glorious. Like ripping people off in New York for the spread of the gospel among the nations. Like, do we realize the opportunities that are there? I think about another guy. I'll tell you one more story real quick. This guy's he's a friend of mine. He has grown up in North Alabama, and he has a horse betting business with his dad. Horse betting with a D, not a T. That's a significant difference. So betting. So this is where the story will get a little weird, but follow with me. So there's this unique tree in northern Alabama that's uniquely able to soak up horses' urine. And so it makes for good betting. So that's the weird part when you say urine in a sermon. So anyway, so he's got this business. Well, we're sitting around one day and we're talking about opportunities around the world. And there's this one particular country in the Middle East. We're looking at business platforms there. And on the list of potential business platforms is horse betting. And this guy's like, his eyes just light up and he realizes, whoa, like God has uniquely given me an opportunity to be a part of the spread of his love there through this business. And I'm just sitting there smiling like, God in his creativity, his sovereignty, has designed a tree in northern Alabama to soak up horses' urine for the spread of the gospel in this country, in the Middle East. Like, did you see your life through this lens? We've been given the greatest news in all the world. People can be saved from eternal damnation to know God, enjoy God forever through what Jesus has done on the cross. We love him, so let's spend our lives spreading that love around the world through all the different avenues, opportunities that there are in a room like this. I challenge you, don't settle for anything less than total surrender to Christ with your heart poured out in adoration, affection for him, and then flowing from that a surrender to saying, God, however you want to use my life to spread your love in the world, I am yours. And I guarantee you that will involve risk, just like this woman, but I guarantee you that will lead to reward far beyond what you can fathom in your own life, and reward for others for all of eternity. So why would you live like that? Here's why. Love, strange thing, and it makes you do strange things. Let me pray. Oh God, I pray for the students in this room. I just pray. I pray for their hearts. I pray that you would take their hearts captive to Christ. I pray that you would wean them off the pleasures and pursuits of this world. And that you would show them that superior pleasure is found in you. And I pray, oh God, that flowing from that lives all across this room would be scattered in the days and years to come, spreading your love, particularly in places where it's not yet known. God, may it be so. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen.